Welcome to Begin, Build, Blossom, your business journey with Clarita, the podcast where we will discuss valuable insights, resources, and motivation to fuel your entrepreneurial spirit. Let's build a supportive community together. Subscribe now to Begin, Build, Blossom, and let's embark on your business journey. Let's pause for a moment to hear from our sponsors. You've built a name for yourself through hard work and dedication, but does managing the business side feel like a distraction from your true passion? Are you dealing with unmanaged finances? CME Accounting LLC is here to help. We specialize in organizing your financial records, allowing you to focus on what you do best. With organized books, you'll have more time for what inspires you, whether that's expanding your influence, building relationships, or simply enjoying life. Don't let unmanaged finances hold you back. Reach out to CME Accounting LLC today and let us help you thrive. Visit our website www.cmeaccountingllc.com or email us at admin@cmeaccountingllc.com. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. Good day and welcome to another episode of our podcast, Begin, Build, Blossom, Your Business Journey. Today we have with us Dr. Nadine Collins. She is a powerhouse in women's leadership, empowerment, and prayer. As an international speaker, women's leadership and empowerment coach, prayer counselor, and author of 12 books, including her popular Wow Prayer series, she travels the world sharing her expertise on the power of prayer. Dr. Nadine holds a Ph.D. in education with a focus on women in top leadership roles, along with a master's in educational psychology and a bachelor's in behavioral sciences. Her contributions to academia, especially on marginalized groups like women, have been significant, with numerous articles published in both academic and theoretical circles. Welcome, Dr. Nadine Collins. How are you doing?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing excellent.
All right. We are very, very happy to have you. Wow, it's so impressive all that you do. So I just can't wait to hear some more about it. On this podcast, we usually start off with a segment we call Rapid Fire. So we'll go ahead and get started. That will be one way to get to know you better. So one word that describes you now and one word that described you as a child.
Okay, one word that describes me now. Oh my goodness, you're putting me on the spot. It might be liberated. And even though I'm still working to be more liberated, but I think that might be a word, maybe freedom as well. And as a child, somewhat of an oxymoron in a sense, but maybe a little shy. As a child, maybe a little sort of reserved.
Okay, thanks for sharing that with us. So about the business, can you tell us the name of your business and what you do in business? I know we covered a lot of things that you do, but we want to hear it from you directly.
Right. So the name of the business right now for, let's say, maybe the past 9 years, I was operating under the business of a partner. But last November, I registered officially my business to kind of represent the work that I do, which is really work with women and do stuff on prayer. So the business is just called, at the moment, Nadine Collins Consultancy. That could change anytime. But under that, the work that I do, as you mentioned in the bio, is really work with women. I do a lot of programs on prayer as well. So my focus in terms of my coaching is focused on women, helping women to become leaders of themselves, of their lives, finding their divine purpose. And most of my clients, I actually help them to build their speaking platforms, which is to be able to position themselves to be able to be experts on their topics, whatever that go-to topic is, so that they can become speakers, so they can travel the world speaking like me, and also help them, those who want to write books, to write and publish their books. And so that will help, again, to even give greater power and kind of greater weight to their speaking. And then on the other hand, so it's women, and then there's the prayer aspect, which is the major part of what I do, which is what allows me to travel so much around the world. It's focused on helping persons to develop a personal relationship with God. And that's how we build our prayer lives. And even when I work with my clients, the ladies, I have every woman who goes through my speaker program or my book program has to do my prayer class, because I want them to be able to be grounded as well in their relationship with God, so that when we come together in our coaching sessions, we really have a lot of power there, because we're connected to God and we're able to receive downloads. And so in a nutshell, that's what I do. So yes, I do have a program on prayer on an international Christian TV network. I've written 10 books in my prayer series. I have other books I've written as well, but the prayer series is on to number 10. Number 10 will be coming out like later this year. And I do have an online prayer class as well, which I'm getting ready to kind of level up under the direction of God to take that prayer class. We're going to be doing a lot of revamping to it. I'm working on a textbook right now on prayer, because the prayer program will now be introduced to Adventist Christian universities globally, but I'm starting with one. So right now I'm in the process of working on that textbook and redeveloping the class for the academic setting.
Wow, wow, wow. And I know you also have a program. The series is called Wow.
Oh yes, the series is called the Wow Prayer Series. Yes.
Right. And that's all I can think of when I listen to you. Just wow. So thanks so much for sharing that with us. And what were you doing before you started your business?
Well, before that, I was actually in school, working on my PhD. As soon as I finished that in 2014, July, I, began speaking. It was not a plan of mine. I would not have envisioned that this would be my life, because I was actually on vacation in London, coming from Asia, when somebody wrote and says, I want you to speak at my church over the weekend. And I thought, this is kind of weird, because my PhD is not in theology, it's in education. So I wrote back and I said, you know that, right? And he said, yes. And so I spoke that weekend. And then the following weekend, I went to sing at another church. And then I got an invitation from somebody, well, first asking me, can you sing for this women's program I'm having the following month? I'm like, actually, I'm getting out of here. I'm just on vacation. And within that 5-minute conversation, she says, and by the way, we've been praying about a speaker and God said it's you. So there I was again the following month in London speaking for my very first women's program, and it was amazing. And that began the journey this year, being 10 years of me being a full-time speaker.
Wow.
Yes.
I love that. And it's great that you help other women to actually achieve that level of speaking as well.
Yes. Yes.
And what has been one of the highest highs for you, or the best moments?
Highest highs for me is really being able to see women rise to their potential, seeing women who thought that they had nothing to offer,
Mm-hmm.
coming to the point of recognizing that, whoa, I have a story to tell. Seeing women who, for example, one of my clients in the UK, who's actually from St. Lucia, who never had any desire to be a speaker or an author, but 2 years of working with her, she is now a speaker. She has been recognized in both the UK and in St. Lucia and stuff, been featured in different magazines, on different programs and so on. And we finished her second book as well. And so to see her, and she said, that was never even an aspiration of mine. And to see a woman now actualize into something that she never visualized is like amazing. And that's the reason why I continue to do what I do, working with what may appear to be everyday women who just are able to now just become what they never expected to be. And I love it, because I think it's just the God work, and it's the best thing to be able to do to help women to rise to a higher level of themselves.
For sure. Wow. I love the work that you do. I've been following you, and I really, really appreciate what you do. So thank you. And on the flip side of that, what's one of the lowest moments you've probably had?
Low moments, I think that it's personal. The low moments are more personal. In business, it's about, okay, you work really hard, you put out all of the good efforts and maybe it doesn't bring in anything. That's hard. But doesn't that could be, I cannot say really a low moment because I don't allow it to distress me, but I've had times where, you work so hard and you do everything possible. You have all of the great strategic plans, you meet with the coaches and you make all of these beautiful plans and nothing pans out, right? Nothing plays out the way that you plan it. That's a little disheartening, but I don't allow that to keep me down. But on the personal side, one of the realizations that I've had, and I think it happened to me just this morning. That's why it's on the top of my head. It's like I have this one prayer partner that I pray with every day. And sometimes we're having prayer conversations all day. And it's like in a moment of, I need somebody to cover me. And I couldn't find her because it was too early. She didn't answer her phone. And I lay in that bed for a moment and ask myself, who prays for the person who prays for everybody else? How or who can I like turn to make sure I'm covered? I'm not looking for just like passive prayers, just like really deeply pray for me the way my prayer partner prays for me. And then my best friend prays for me. But I mean, I couldn't access either of them. And in that moment, for me, it's like, that's a low moment when that thought came, and I even put it on my WhatsApp as who prays for the person who prays for everybody else. And so that's maybe one of the things, where you're covering people and people can depend on you to pray for them and stuff like that. But then you need covering too, right? And so that's, yeah.
Yes. And if you don't mind me asking, how did you get through that this morning?
Well, I did try to call a few people that I'm close to, who I could just talk to, even though I know that it wouldn't be about prayer. And I didn't get a few of them. And finally, I got one of them and just spoke with him. He's a pastor as well, with just what was on my mind, my heart, what I was going through. And then in the end, he prayed for me. And stuff like that. And then my prayer partner called me after. We haven't prayed yet, but we had a convo just discussing what I was like, just processing and stuff like that. And she told me she was up late last night praying for me because she knew that, there were things on my mind. And so having that covering is important. Yes.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were definitely being covered. Maybe not in the moment you were seeking it, but someone was covering you. So that's great.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. And I know you've written many books, but I'll still ask you that question. Is there a book or a movie that you'd recommend that we read or watch?
Oh la la. Wow. Let's see. I wrote this book, The Pursuit of Purpose. I think one of them is on that shelf over there. But anyway, I think it's a good book for women because, again, you remember we talk about helping women uncover their divine purpose? That's what it's for. I've had women who read that book. I remember when I released it in September 2022, last year, sometime I was in Uganda. And this lady who happened to be from Uganda, but living in California, she sent me an email, and her email was, "Why did you write that book?" So when I got that message from her, I was a little troubled. I thought to myself, do I need to take that book off the shelf? But then the Holy Spirit impressed me to ask a secondary question. So I emailed her later and I asked her, why did you ask that question? Because initially I just felt bad. I thought something was wrong, right? She wrote back and she said, because I read the book in 5 days. And she said, since then I haven't slept. For a few nights I haven't slept because it troubled her spirit. So she couldn't sleep. That's last year. She ended up she's a very shy lady, okay? Really shy lady. She ended up coming into my speaker program. 1 year later, she is a speaker. She's actually doing speaking engagements, taking pictures, being online, being visible, something that was never in a thing. It is in her mind, in her life, whatever. And she's also now an author. So that book has changed many lives. My prayer books have done the same. People read them and they're like, I remember one lady writing me and saying to me, I'm so happy I got these books because now I can teach my daughters how to pray so that they don't go through life like me.
That's very powerful.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So it's like, that's that. So if I had to recommend any movies, it would be movies that would also empower individuals in their prayer lives, like like War Room and The Forge, or whatever the case may be. I think when I was growing up, my favorite movie was The Sound of Music. I mean, that's not a movie to recommend. It's not like there are any major lessons to learn. I don't know. There probably is, but that was my favorite child movie. Okay. But the thing is, when it comes to, for me, we could watch things for entertainment, and then we could also watch things to edify us. And so, there's entertainment and there's edification, things that actually empower you and pull you up. And so I would say anything that could really inspire you to become a better version of yourself would be the movie I would recommend. Whatever that movie is would be something, but you could do the entertainment. But I mean, if you have to truly, go for something that when you're done watching that movie, you're like, okay, now I can be the best self I can be, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, thanks so much. And you've been generous enough to share a link where our listeners can access, basically download and read the first chapter of the book, The Pursuit of Purpose. So we will be making that available in the show notes. So you get a chance to read and see the impact it has on you. So thank you for sharing that with us. Just so you know, you would need to put in your name and your email address to access it, but it is available for free. So if you so choose, you can go ahead and access it there. Okay, we'll move on to the other segment we call the Begin segment. And here we want to know more about how your journey started. So I know you mentioned that it was almost by accident. So I was just wondering, even prior to that, did you ever think of yourself as an entrepreneur or that you'd be heading that way?
Well, nice question, because to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger, and most likely around, I think somewhere, I say younger, but it was not really young, maybe to some people, but like about 21 years ago, when I was in college, I had this idea because I always loved writing. So from the time I was a little girl, I would write stories, 30 something pages of the file sheets back and front, staple them together, and my friends would read the books. That's the real paperback books, by the way. I did that. Okay. My friends would read and they'd pass it from one to the next. And it was always these little novels I used to write and stuff like that. And my friends would read it. So there was always, okay, the writer in me, right? I also used to write poetry because it's how I express myself. Even in my teenage years, writing poetry, in my early 20s, writing poetry. It's only now I don't really write much. But back then I wrote a lot of poems. I still have books with so many poems in them because I used to write. So writing was always a thing. It was a way of expressing myself. That's one thing. But when I was in college, I remember, business cards. I designed some of the complimentary cards. I did calendars and a whole heap of other things on Vistaprint at the time, with my vision in mind to have my business called Be Inspired. And I visualized having my inspirational store on airports, seriously. And it would be Inspired. And I was so sad. Like, I mean, I didn't register it way back then. I would have probably had trademark, access, but now that's already gone. But back then, 21 years ago, that's the thing that was in my spirit, to have that inspirational business. It was about that, I wanted to inspire people, and I thought I would have done that through my poetry books, and I would write other books. So there was that. Was I intentional about setting up the business? No, but I did my little memorabilia and thing. I did my pens. I was doing all of that because in my mind, I would have my business to inspire people, be inspired, And so, yes, there was always that desire, I believe, from then, but I was not actively trying to do it or figuring out how to do it. It was just a dream of mine to walk on an airport and Be Inspired, and people walk in there and they get books and they get, that was the thing in my mind.
And I can see you still go through a lot of airports and you do inspire. So they did kind of come together, just not quite the way you probably thought.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Nice. And would you like to touch a little bit on your upbringing? Like, what about your upbringing thing you'd say leads to where you are today?
My grandmother. I grew up with my grandmother, my dad's mom, and I believe it was by divine design that God allowed that to happen. She was my first example of what a praying, powerful praying person looks like. She was a woman of prayer. She was a woman of faith. And I saw how her prayers and her faith gave us a good life. Because my grandmother worked at the time at a bakery in Castries, St. Lucia called Central Bakery. Some people call it Amma Bakery. And she made, I believe it was about 120 either a week or fortnight, or 240 a fortnight, something like that. And I saw that woman every single Friday buy these huge, the big bags that would have flour, like 100 pounds of flour. She'd buy every Friday, buy that, well, bread to fill that, and then come home and distribute bread in clear plastic bags, which should write names on so I could go distribute to older folks in the surrounding communities. I did that my entire childhood every Friday, right? Going to bring this, going to deliver bread to these folks they would call sick and shut-in people who cannot go out for themselves and stuff. And every Friday I do that, I would get blessed by one of these older folks. They would always tell me, my child, God will bless you in Creole, and I would get these blessings. But the thing is, it was seen not just her allowing me the opportunity to be of service, but her prayer life. Because that woman took her small salary, she'd give a double tithe in church and offering. And we were at home. We never lacked food for one day. I saw how she was so generous and how blessed she was because of her commitment to God and her giving her tithe and all of that stuff. And it was amazing to watch how she would pray and how her prayers would cover my uncle who was wayward at the time, and we would see things should have happened to him that didn't happen because mama was a praying. And so I always looked at her prayer life. I was always inspired by that. I remember she'd always use a particular phrase. She would say, I feel as if I'm God's only child. And I would listen to the lady say that time after time. And it reached a point where I was jealous and I thought, I want to know and feel what it's like to feel as if I'm God's only child, right? I would see how intentional she was about taking her shower and putting her powder puff on her chest and sitting in a specific chair so she can have her time with the Lord. And so she was my first example what it means to have an effective, a practical prayer life, to really have God in your everyday circumstances, and also to experience the blessings of having that relationship with God.
Wow. I love that. That's a lot. Thanks for sharing that with us. And I wish I had met your grandma because it sounds like she had quite an impact. She taught you how to be of service, and she has taught you quite a bit. So thanks for sharing that with us. Really appreciate that.
Power to the grandmas.
Yes, yes. And it reminds me of how we live our lives. It impacts people, and we don't know, how would I put that? We don't know what we're creating for the future, right? Because she has impacted you in that way, and now you've changed so many lives because of what she showed you. Wow, that's great. And in terms of the business itself, I know you said you operated one way for 9 years and then more recently another way. So if you wanted to just tell us a little bit more about the process, like when you started the business, the steps that you took, and maybe even changing from one way of doing things to another, that would be great.
Yes, so even though I've been operating full-time speaking for the past 10 years, let's just go with the last 1 year because that's when truly it began for me doing it by myself.
Okay.
I felt impressed by God. I was praying and fasting last October, and he said, you need to register your business. And of course, that would have created some tension in the previous arrangement that I had, but I needed to obey. And so because I didn't want to make a mistake, I did hire a company to register the business for me to ensure that everything runs smoothly. After I got back my business papers, the registration and so on, I went to the bank to open my business account. I tried transferring $5,000 from the other business account that all my funds had been going to for years to that business account. That didn't work out. So I started Nadine Collins Consultancy with $0 and 0 cents on November 8th. It was the most amazing feeling to start from scratch, because I said to myself, thank God the $5,000 didn't go through for the start. Now that I'm starting at zero, let me see where God takes it. And so it was that kind of journey of faith. That's how it started. And I just saw how God just did what he had to do. But that's in a nutshell the experience. But it was really liberating, because sometimes we think, well, I don't have money to start my business. And a lot of us don't, because we think we need the capital to start, right? Some might say, well, you already were in business, so you already maybe had clients, so you're already doing stuff. But for me, the capital was what was in my mind, and how can I use what was in my mind, my experience, the call that God has on my life to now create opportunities to be able to bring funds to my business. And so that's, yeah.
Let's pause for a moment to hear from our sponsors. You've built a name for yourself through hard work and dedication, but does managing the business side feel like a distraction from your true passion? Are you dealing with unmanaged finances? CME Accounting LLC is here to help. We specialize in organizing your financial records, allowing you to focus on what you do best. With organized books, you'll have more time for what inspires you, whether that's expanding your influence, building relationships, or simply enjoying life. Don't let unmanaged finances hold you back. Reach out to CME Accounting LLC today and let us help you thrive. Visit our website www.cmeaccountingllc.com or email us at admin@cmeaccountingllc.com. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. Oh, wow. To start from zero. A lot of us start from there. How do you go from zero though? How do you manage all what you're supposed to manage to lead up to that first dollar on $0?
Yes, that's the thing. So it's about using the mind now to just create like in the business world, they say create offers and stuff like that. For me, I was already working with clients and so on in the previous arrangement that I was under. And so one of the things that I did in that case was there were a few outstanding things. So I actually over time just moved them over. But then now I had to be intentional, okay, about okay, I need to get contracts. So I need to do this. I need to do that. This business now is in my name, so I can't afford to slack up. And so it's about just giving it your best, praying and working hard to get opportunities and stuff like that. So you start from zero, but you need to have an offer. If you're selling a product or a service, if you're selling the products, how am I going to market my products, right? Where's the best place for me to market my products? Who are the people I need to be having conversations with who can help me to get my products where they need to go? In the case of services, for me, though, I don't do that for my books. I do not reach out to people to sell my books or nothing. I sell my books on stage when I speak. So my job is about the service aspect of it, is getting in touch with people or following up with individuals who wanted to have programs or who want to have programs and so on. And it's about getting on the stage and speaking. And when I speak, that's why I sell my books. I don't depend on Amazon to sell books. I really didn't even care about Amazon because I'm not particularly always impressed with the quality of print, etc. Some things, but I sell my books when I'm on stage speaking. Sometimes I forget to mention it, but after the program, I will be outside of my table. People were already inspired, impressed, impacted by the messages, and of course they get the books. And so my products I sell when I speak. My services, on the other hand, is what we actually sometimes do, little campaigns on social media. My assistant be posting on social media all day and stuff like that, just trying to get there, and me having sometimes webinars and stuff just to put myself in front of individuals who may need my services so that I could actually get clients so that my business can continue to grow. And the third part is about understanding what God wants me to do in a moment with what he has given me. So for example, I launched my online prayer class in 2018, but last year, 2023, God said you need to prepare it for universities and conferences. And so there's a lot more work going behind the scenes to begin to now do a proposal and getting it ready for the university scene, which is totally different. It's an academic scene. There are different standards that need to be used, different taxonomies and so on that you kind of want to use to ensure that the class meets academic standards. And so it's about using what you already have. And hence the prayer factor is so important to me. It's about God's leading me. So when God told me that, I said, Lord, the least of my programs, the cheapest of my programs, you tell me to focus on that versus selling my programs at maybe $7,000 to $15,000. This is it. But I had to trust him and just to see how he continues to open the door and how he continues to lead me into trusting that what might seem little, I am going to expand it. I am going to make much with it. And so hence the guidance. I tell people all the time, prayer is my number one business strategy. That's it. It's about me getting guidance from God to be able to know how to get to that next level. Because over the years, I've spent so much money hiring coaches, sales and marketing and branding and this and all of that stuff, finance coaches and all of these things. And I made a decision. I'm not doing any of that. They say, I am just going with God. God gonna coach me. That's it. I'm going to take my coaching from him. And that's it. Because I already have so much exposure to all of these other different strategies. But I want God to lead me into success. And he knows everything and he will lead me and guide and order my steps so I can get to have greater impact in the world through my prayer class and my books and coaching women.
Okay. Well, congrats. That's a lot that you've done and continue to do. So congratulations. And from zero to now, seems to me from looking on, very successful business. So congratulations. And I was just wondering, I know we talked about you've worked with coaches and various persons. I'm an accountant and I'm just curious, for someone like you starting business, what do you wish you would have learned from an accountant even before you started?
Oh, let's see. I do have an accountant working for me because, I am not doing any books. Even though in high school I did bookkeeping and stuff like that. So the company I hired, for example, to register my business is an accounting company, but I hired another company. They were already familiar with what I do since they were doing the accounting for the other company where all my funds used to go. So they're there. So having an accountant in the initial stages of a business is important to know what type of business to set up. Because before I set it up, I really did call the accountant and I asked her, I said, this is what I'm going to do. What's your advice on what type of business? Do I set up an LLC? Do I set up an S Corp? And stuff like that. So she gave advice as to, okay, you can start with an LLC. When you get into a different tax bracket, we can move to an S Corp. So having the advice on even the type of business to set up is very important. And of course, having an accountant to do everything throughout is also important because, listen, we got to pay IRS, okay? We have to pay state taxes and this and that. And they keep that going for me because I wouldn't have the bandwidth to manage all of that stuff. I just don't have it because there's so much to do trying to get business and then trying to manage my financial part of, paying taxes, paying this, paying that. Too much work for me.
Right. Yes, I totally know what you mean. And another resource is also the an attorney. I feel like when it comes to setting up the business, it's really good to work in tandem with an attorney and the accountant. But it sounds like your accountant was very knowledgeable and really provided good advice. So that's great. We're going to now move on to the Blossom segment. And that's where we'd like to find out, what does success mean to you?
Success to me is about impact. You see, because I grew up in the Caribbean and as a child, when they ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? We'd say things like a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher, a nurse, a flight attendant, a teller at the bank, And we were taught growing up that, going to school, getting good grades, get a good job, get paid well, get perks, buy a house, buy a car, have a family, that's success. That's the view that I grew up in about what success looks like. So usually when people fall outside of that perimeter, they're probably deemed unsuccessful. But what I've learned throughout the years, especially because I chose a different path, because I did the PhD. I went to school. I did everything I was taught to do, right? I did the PhD and I was finished. And so it's like, okay, now go to university to work. That's what you studied for. Go be an administrator and so on. But since I was younger, when I was a little girl, I always thought that there was a call on my life, like a deeper something more than what it is I was exposed to. And it was global. Because from the time I was like 8 years old, I had already studied the entire atlas. I could identify every country flag. I knew the capital cities. I knew the GDP, the GNP, the natural resources, population, all of that stuff. So there was always that kind of like global mind. I had pen pals from all over the world. I used to exchange stamps, phone cards, currencies, all of that stuff, right? Now, I did everything the way we were taught to do it, what success should be, until I recognized that because of my purpose and my call, that success has very little to do with things that are important, by the way, your bank account balance. And I believe we want to have those big balances. That is not equated to success. Our educational level does not equate to success, because a lot of people have a lot of money, okay, but they're not fulfilled. They're not happy. And so if money was success, then that means you'll be the happiest person in the world, right? If your education level is success, then that means everybody who's highly educated, PhDs, postgrads, or whatever, then they should be the happiest people in the world. But that's not the case, in fact. So for me, success is really truly about operating in your purpose and having an impact, because that's where the greatest fulfillment comes. When you know that you're making the difference in the lives of others, to me, that is success. And if that brings you the big bank account, amen. Okay. But success is not just aligned with that. That could be part of the equation. And the truth is, it should be part of the equation. You know, our work should be able to help us to become rich, right? However, that is not an indication of success by itself. It's about being able to influence, inspire, impact lives, leaving a legacy. So when you're gone, people can have something that they can hold on to from what you did, like my grandmother. She was successful because she impacted my life and the lives of those in our families, that even though she's gone for so many years, I can still quote her saying certain things. I could still mention a name often. Why? Because of the impact that she had on my life. That's success, because of her work, now I'm able to do things that I didn't think was possible because of her. So while she may have been a little lady working in a bakery, making that little bit of money and making tamarind balls on the side for money, she impacted my life. That's success to me.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. And I definitely concur. Like, definitely, that's how I would describe success as well. And as we move on to the closeout segment, are there about 3 tips you'd like to share with someone listening to you right now? Someone who's wondering, should I go into business? Or somebody who's already in business and they probably just need that extra push?
Okay, so 3 things. The first thing would be really to have a very clear understanding. Number 1, if you're already in business, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Because when we were growing up, we were taught about filling in the gaps, about going to study on what's the priorities list. That means you get a job. But the business that you have, is it a business in your mind? Okay, well, there is a need, so let me do it, versus there is a call. So while there might be a need for something and people will want it, you can do it but not feel fulfilled. It could become like somewhat of a pain in the butt because it's a good opportunity, but it's not aligning with you, right? For somebody who's also not in business, before you get into it, is this what I'm being called to do? because most people start businesses because of opportunity. And for some people, it might work. But over time, it really doesn't, because it takes a toll on you when it's not aligned with your call. And so if you want to be successful, you want to be able to have great impact, make sure that the business you're starting has everything to do with what you're called to do. The second thing is to ensure that, I'm just thinking from the top of my head. So now you operate in your call to ensure that you have people call it a why, knowing why you're doing it. And for me, it's about understanding that that thing that you're doing actually matters. So what am I being called to do? And having the understanding, if that's my call, then it truly matters. And in the business world, they call it knowing your why. I talk about it when I speak about purpose, as understand that your purpose actually matters. So why is that important? It's important because if you don't understand that this thing actually matters, you may give up when it's not making the money. You may give up when you're not getting the clients, right? And so you need to know the why. You need to know that that purpose actually matters. And the third thing recognizing is that if you're actually operating in your purpose, which actually matters, the Bible actually tells us, I'm a Christian, so I go from that angle, it's going to make room for you. It's going to bring you, the Bible says, into the presence of greatness. A lot of individuals are looking to be rich, looking to be successful, looking to have businesses, but it's not aligned with themselves. They're trying to do things to get into rooms, for example, to sit with certain individuals. But the Bible says your gift is going to make room for you. It's going to usher you into the presence of greatness. And that's the reason why I encourage people, if even through one of my programs called Runway to Soar, to help women start their businesses, but really aligned with your call. Because when you are doing a business that is aligned with you and what you're called to do, that is where doors are going to open for you. You don't have to fight it to get into these doors. In fact, people are in these rooms just waiting for you to come in, because it's like, because you're being true to you, you're being true to your call, you're being true to, the reason, the purpose for which you have been placed in this world. And so these are the three things I would say, understand that you have a divine purpose. You need to find it. That purpose actually matters.
How do you find that purpose?
It's a process of really, for me, it's about seeking. I do have a free resource I could send to you about that, uncovering your divine purpose, that you can share with your audience as well. But it's really like seeking out. For me as a Christian, for example, I go to God. Why am I here? And I do give women like assignments to do the first module in my Runway to Soar, for example. And I think that free resource has that laid out to help people to just go through a series of different questions for them to be able to see things like it's because a lot of people may have a purpose and they think it's my hobby. I like this thing. These things come natural to me, or I'm passionate about it, but I think this thing's not going to make money for me. And so let me just get a job and I'll do this on the side. And purpose sometimes is wrapped up in good experiences, bad experiences. It's wrapped up in maybe what you're passionate about or not. And it might be a combination of all of these things. And so it's just going through the process and so on. But I'll send you that resource.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I've been saying wow throughout, and that just reminds me of your wow series. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. And one of the things we try to do is build community. So we always like to ask guests, are you open to meeting one-on-one with someone? If they can contact you and have that conversation. Is that something that you're open to doing?
Well, we can, that could happen. I do have a calendar that I would sometimes send to people the link if they want to have like a 30-minute free consultation with me. We can talk about, we can do that. So I could send that link for you as well, that you can share with your audience. Yes.
Okay, so I'll share that. And before we go, can you just let everyone know the ways that they can reach you?
Okay, so my website is nadinecollins.com. My name, NADINE COLLINS, nadinecollins.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. You can also Google me or YouTube me. You can get to my YouTube channel and you can get content there that would inspire you. And so, you can find me on basically almost any social media platform.
All right. And we will also add that to the show notes so people can have access to that. Thank you so much for sharing with us, for spending time with us, for motivating us, and just for, being you and teaching us so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Begin, Build, Blossom, Your Business Journey, a CME Accounting LLC podcast. Please subscribe and be on the lookout for our next episode. If you'd like to share any feedback with us, please email us at podcast@cmeaccountingllc.com.